What's up, everyone? This is the Next Take podcast with Mikel and
Tanyka.
where we have conversation on different topics. So we have a special episode for you guys. What do we got in today's episode, Tanyka?
So we're doing a bonus episode, or May bonus episode. So kind of know the formatting. We just kind of go through the topics
Mm.
as we go through them. It's usually how we do it.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So the first thing I kind of wanted to talk about was, I know kind of in one of the episodes, whether it's an episode that's still upcoming or one we've already talked about, but we kind of were talking about the 5 or 6 women that kind of went into space, right?
Mm.
And I've kind of now been kind of researching it a little bit, kind of seeing what the issues were.
Mm.
Um, and I can kind of understand now what the issue was. And I can actually understand why
Mm.
it was such an issue. And I kind of agree. So the biggest kind of thing here was that it seemed a little tone deaf of the fact that here are these women is no issue with women,
Mhm.
but the fact of the matter is there are women in science who study this, and who work in this field,
Mhm.
who could have been in place of these women that were a part of this. You have Jeff Bezos' girlfriend who is only there because Jeff Bezos has paid for this.
Mm.
Um, and the suits they were wearing was suits that I can't remember if it's he paid for them or she made them or whatever the case may be, but it's like you're putting all of this money into something that it's like, could that money have gone somewhere else? And then the other thing is people have really had an issue with Katy Perry and some of the things that she said that was
Um,
like,
uh, yeah, I heard it. Well,
yeah,
I haven't heard, but like I just haven't been following Katy Perry or Katy Perry
no,
in
no, I
general
haven't been following Katy
at
Perry
all.
either. And that
Oh,
has nothing to do with it,
but
whether you're following her or not.
yeah.
It's about this,
But
right?
it got to the point where the restaurant Wendy's tweeted she the Wendy's restaurant,
Yeah, yeah.
the yeah,
This
it
is a
got to that
Wendy's, yeah, yeah.
yeah. Uh, it got to that point where I was just like, why would Wendy's do such a I
Because
know.
I can't remember
I,
exactly what Katy Perry said,
uh-huh.
but what she did say was kind of like, are you on the same planet with
Stay
everybody
with it.
else? And that's the issue. So the main reason I'm bringing this up, though, is because I saw this, whether it's true or not. I mean, there was photos that kind of went with this Facebook post that
Mm-hmm.
kind of seems like it's pretty accurate, or at least is a real thing. And I think is actually was really insightful into why this is such an issue. And this is a Facebook post that was written by a man. So this is like, okay, he's not kind of having an issue that's women going into space or anything like that. So here's what I'm not going to say what his name is, but here's kind of what he had to say, and I think it's really insightful. It's a bit long, but bear with me. So he says, I have to admit, after watching all the interviews, I have a quote, they're so disconnected from real life feeling about all the female Blue Origin spaceflight. Katy Perry, Gail King, and Jeff Bezos' girlfriend Lauren Sanchez were part of the crew. I want you to read a few quotes pre and post flight. So, quote, space is going to finally be glam. Let me tell you something. If I could take glam up with me, I would do that. we're going to put the A in astronaut, said Katy Perry. So that's this is, why
Mm,
does this matter?
mhm.
Okay. Another quote. I think the suits are elegant, but they also bring a little spice to space. And this was said by Jeff Bezos' girlfriend, who designed the spacesuits with Monsi designers and co-founders Fernando Garcia and Laura Kim. But here's the quote that bothered me the most, and this is the poster saying this quote: "Making space for future women and taking up space and belonging." Once again, this was said by Katy Perry. All of a
What?
sudden, do you
Taking
want me to say that again?
yeah, go on,
Okay.
read.
Making space for
Uh-huh,
future women
uh-huh.
and taking up space and belonging. And this was said by Katy Perry. I personally don't see as big of an issue with this, but I think the issue of it coming from a person who I don't know. The Katy Perry has had some issues.
Mhm,
I think people who've watched American Idol, especially, I haven't watched it fully since it maybe the first season it came back. Um, but a lot has kind of come out about Katy Perry. It's like, girl, please take several seats. And I think that's the issue here. But let me continue the
mm,
post.
mhm,
All of a sudden, a $28 million ticket to space creates a future for women? Question mark. That I understand.
mhm,
My son and I had an amazing experience 2 years ago. That's us in front of the VAB, and so that's us in his post, a picture in the post, just moments before a SpaceX rocket launch. Just being next to that historic building was something I'll never forget. I'll treasure the memory forever. But it's the person who took the picture I want to focus on. It was a NASA scientist who was a woman.
mhm,
Through a close personal friend, she invited us on base for this once in a lifetime moment. I won't reveal who she is, but I will reveal this. Companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin listen to her. Why? Because she's one of the many brilliant women in charge of making sure astronauts like Katy, quote unquote, astronauts like Katy Perry get home safely.
huh,
We spent hours with her talking about space and what she's seen over a few decades. I
right.
remember asking, quote, "Since you're around it all the time, are you still in awe of it all?" I'll never forget what she said. She said every launch. She told me about future projects 10 to 20 years down the road and what she hopes to accomplish. She told me what they're working on that will change space travel for lifetimes. She even got emotional, explaining the heartbreak when a crew doesn't make it back. I watched the tears fall down her face. I'm forever humbled she allowed me that moment. Decades of knowledge with one of the smartest women in the world, and I got to ask anything I wanted for 2 hours.
Mhm,
And now I can't imagine the disrespect women like herself feel when they watch billionaires pay $28 million to spend 11 minutes in space just to claim they've created a future for women. No, Katy Perry, you didn't. And let me be clear, I'm not against their trip. If that's how they want to spend their money, great. More power to you. But let's be honest, you were a passenger, and your voyage was built on the foundation of women decades before you. If anything, you sent a message to little girls that glam was more important than STEM related programs that can help provide the path to space.
mm,
Um, sorry, I'm trying to find where I was here. You sent a message that hair and makeup was priority over math and science. If anything, you told our future that space is easy as long as you have the designer suit and rich friends. As a father with a brilliant little
mm.
girl, the path to space was laid by the women before this Blue Origin crew.
Damn.
Yeah, I read this post. I just happened upon it.
Mhm.
And I was like, this is a fantastic post
Ye yeah,
and
yeah.
really put into perspective for me.
Mhm,
And I wanted to relay that to everyone else
uh-huh,
that this Blue Origin
mhm,
is problematic because of not that it's women, but the women that were chosen. And the fact that you were only chosen because you can afford to do it. You know, it's
mhm.
and there's women who have
All
made that
kinds.
possible for these 5 or whatever women
Mhm,
to be
mhm,
able to do that. and you're acting as if you paved the way for them. You didn't.
So
You
I see.
didn't.
I see. I see.
Yeah.
It came out arrogant than humble, I would say.
And that's the problem that I think people are having is that, especially Katy Perry, she's got the most heat from this,
Right.
that she came across as arrogant than humble. You're correct with that. I agree with that. And that's the issue.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Mm. Just something like that.
Yeah, not saying anyone should change their views, but I just kind of wanted
Mhm.
to add that
Mhm.
context because I'm
Mhm.
like, I totally understand it now.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, understandable now, cause
yeah,
yeah, everybody was like, kept coming at her. I just didn't know why, cause I just heard about this news that a lot of five is it 5 of these women are going up in space.
yeah. I think it
Didn't
was
hear the back. Yeah,
5. Yeah,
5 or 6.
yeah.
Yeah, of the women going up in space. Um, didn't hear the backlash beforehand or afterhand. I didn't know the reason why people were telling out Carrie Perry or telling out the women. I thought it was more
You think, yeah,
positive.
you think it's like, oh, because they're women,
Yeah,
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 because they're going on space.
yeah.
But I understand why because like, Jeff Bezos invested
Hmm.
into this, well, if he wants to call it a project, and wanted to, see it go go through with it. So,
Hmm.
uh,
And
yeah.
partly like the money that we are spending, like I know he doesn't own Amazon anymore, but
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sure
yeah.
he's like a silent partner to some degree.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But the money that we are spending on Amazon, which is, I'm guilty of it. Others are guilty of it, I'm sure. And we'll kind of dig a little
Yeah.
more deeper on like, not so much Amazon, but like
Yeah,
fast fashion. And we contributed to this space flight that happened and, in so many ways. And it's just,
um, yeah.
again,
Mhm,
I don't care necessarily if it's a celebrity that's going up there. I don't
mhm,
care because it's probably celebrities or people with the money who can afford to do this in this
mhm,
day and age that we're in,
mhm,
with space travel. But it's the tone. It's just the being tone deaf.
mhm,
Katy Perry mainly being tone deaf, and it's kind of like
mhm,
I don't know.
mhm,
And again, I like you said, I haven't really followed her career
mhm,
in the
mhm,
last, I would say 5, 6, 7 years. Um, I had kind of personally stopped really liking her
mhm,
after seeing her on American Idol, which we don't have to get too much into that, but let's just say women can sexually assault men too.
right.
Um, and I just didn't like her, so I just stopped like really following her. But this is not okay.
Mm,
All right, here I am coming in with my own article by myself. Um, so here we go. So Health Canada has issued an expanded product recall notice for thousands of stuffed animals sold in Canada. Immediately stop using the recalled products and dispose of them, which are sold by Health Canada. Warned in an update product recall notice that was posted on April 3rd. Quote, the hard plastic eyes can detach, posing a choking risk to the young children. So I will be talking about what those are in a second. So the recall involves the Souvenir de Canada plush toys, including the brown bear, white bear, moose, and black bear. As of April 2nd, the company has received no reports of incidents or injuries in Canada. The plush toys have a red and white hat and sweater with Canada written on the front with a maple leaf symbol. The black bear, brown bear, moose, and white bear stuffed animals were subject to the recall. The company reported that 2,232 units of the affected products were sold in Canada between February of 2024 to March of 2025. This was an expanded product recall that was first published on November 19th of 2024. So In case you have these and you want to be sure you know exactly what that is, here's a little bit of the information for each of the items. So Black Bear is item number 54108 with a UPC number 772548541085. Brown Bear, item number 54110 with the UPC number 772548541108. Moose, item number 54111, UPC number 772548541115. White Bear, which is item number 54109, UPC number 772548541092. You can report a food concern or complaint to the Canadian Foods Inspection Agency online. Consumers can report any health or safety incidents related to the use of products by filling out or filling out a Consumer Product Incident Report form. You can check for more information for recall notices published on the Health Canada and the CFIA online. So next piece. The resentencing hearing of the Menendez brothers can move forward despite opposition from the district attorney. A Los Angeles court has now ruled. The brothers' attorneys are attempting to have them resentenced to a lesser term, which could potentially make them eligible for freedom. Eric and Lyle, as we will know, in case you don't know, we'll break it down. Eric and Lyle were convicted of killing their parents in their Beverly Hills mansion in 1989, a notorious case that still divides Americans. They're currently serving life in prison without the possibility of parole in California. Friday's ruling means a pair of high-profile hearings next week, or maybe it has already happened, to decide whether the convicted killers will be resentenced will continue. Los Angeles District Attorney Nathan Hochman has voiced fierce opposition to resentencing the pair after his predecessor put the process in motion just before the November election. The brothers' effort is based on a California law that allows certain inmates who were aged under 26 at the time of their crimes to seek resentencing and potential parole eligibility, recognizing that brain development continues into a person's mid-20s. If the brothers are resentenced to 50 years to life, as they are requesting it to be, it would make them immediately eligible for parole. Lyle and Eric Menendez appeared for hearing remotely via video stream from a San Diego prison. Both were dressed in blue prison jumpsuits and appeared nervous at times, looking down, rocking in chairs, and taking deep breaths, as prosecutors recounted graphic details of the killings. The district attorney's office argued that while prosecutors can recognize inmates have rehabilitated while behind bars, the act of resentencing someone should be used with care. Deputy District Attorney Habib Balan criticized the former DA George Gascon's, whose backing of the resentencing effort allowed it to move forward. He said the decision by Gascon to announce his support for the brothers to be resentenced just before the November election, which Gascon lost to Hochman by a wide margin, was politically driven. Okay, even if it was, come on now. The DA's office has argued the brothers have not fully taken responsibility. What? Oh my God. They have literally been admitting from day one that they killed their parents. And this is what happened. So are you saying that because they are claiming they were sexually abused by their father? I'm just wondering. Anyways, and have continued to grasp at, here we go, at alleged lies in the case to shed blame. Sakes. I will cut that out. Mark Garagos, an attorney for the Mendez brothers, argued that the district attorney's office was more concerned with relitigating the previous trial and hadn't examined what the pair had been doing the last 35 years in prison. The pair had completed schooling while behind bars and worked to start rehabilitation programs for disabled and elderly inmates, along with incarcerated individuals suffering with trauma. The judge ruled that prosecutors failed to show why the resentencing effort should not continue and emphasized the importance of maintaining consistency even with shifts in leadership. Quote, "There's no new information," the judge said, "and none of this is really new. They've stuck with their story. It goes to whether they've been rehabilitated." The case was thrust back into the public eye last year as new evidence emerged in the release of the new Netflix drama Monsters, the Lyle and Eric Menendez story. The series introduced the case to a new generation and garnered attention from celebrities, including Kim Kardashian and Rosie O'Donnell, who called for the brothers to be released. Legal experts say the outcome of the Menendez brothers' resentencing hearing could take several forms depending on how the judge rules. The most straightforward path would be to deny resentencing altogether, leaving their current sentence, a life without the possibility of parole, intact. This is the outcome Los Angeles District Attorney Nathan Hochman is pushing for, arguing the brothers have not fully accepted responsibility for their crimes and therefore don't qualify for a reduced sentence. Whatever. Alternatively, the court could side with former DA George Gaskin's earlier recommendation and resentence the brothers to 50 years to life. This would make them immediately eligible, as we've said, for parole, as they've already served more than 30 years. But eligibility doesn't guarantee release. They would still need to convince a parole board they are no longer a danger to society. Another possibility is that the judge opts for a modified sentence that reduces their punishment but does not immediately open the door to parole. In that case, the brothers could face several more years behind bars before becoming eligible. Their resentencing bid is one of 3 routes the brothers have been chasing in recent months in hopes of being freed. California Governor Gavin Newsom is still weighing another option, granting the brothers clemency. Newsom said the brothers were scheduled to appear before the state's parole board on June 13th to discuss the findings of a risk assessment he'd ordered examining whether Eric and Lyle pose a danger to society. Depending on the results, the governor could grant clemency, commuting their sentences to make them eligible for parole or even releasing them outright. The third route the brothers have eyed, asking for a new trial, hit a roadblock when Hochman's office announced they would oppose that request. So, yeah. You know where I stand with this, so I've kind of talked about it. Me and Mikel have talked about it, where we kind of maybe both stand on this. Um, so I hope for whatever is going to help them get out. I believe they've served their time because at the end of the day, they still did kill their parents. So yeah, I hope they can have some freedom, whatever that may look like. All right, let's go into the next piece that I have here. So, Grey's Anatomy star Eric Dane, aka McSteamy, um, revealed that he has been diagnosed with ALS. Whew. So, um, Dane, who's 52, shared the major health update in an interview with People magazine and said that he will continue to work as he navigates ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease, which is a terminal neurodegenerative disease that affects nerve cells in the brain and spinal cord. He said, quote, "I am grateful to have my loving family by my side as we navigate this next chapter." Who we also know played the beloved, as I just said, McSteamy on Grey's. He said, "I feel fortunate that I'm able to continue working and I'm looking forward to returning to the set of Euphoria next week," which I think at this point it has already started. He said, "I kindly ask that you give my family and I privacy during this time." So Dane is married to actor Rebecca Gayheart. The couple share 2 children, Billy Beatrice, who's 15, and Georgia Geraldine, who's 13. On Euphoria, set to resume shooting later, it started later in April. Dane stars as Cal Jacobs, the father to Jacob Elordi's character Nate Jacobs. ALS, as in case someone really knows, but we'll talk about it. ALS progressively destroys the nerve cells and connections needed to walk, talk, and breathe. The disease often begins with muscle twitching and weakness in an arm or leg, trouble swallowing, or slurred speech, according to the Mayo Clinic. Symptoms of ALS vary from person to person and depend on which nerve cells are affected. The Mayo Clinic states ALS generally begins with muscle weakness that gets worse over time. Symptoms might include trouble walking or carrying out usual daily activities, tripping and falling, weakness in the legs, feet or ankles, hand weakness, and thinking or behavioral changes. There is currently no cure for the fatal disease, and people usually live 3 to 5 years after their diagnosis, according to the Muscular Dystrophy Association. However, some patients can live for decades with the disease. Other notable figures who have been diagnosed with ALS include Stephen Hawking, actor Aaron Lazar, Killing Me Softly singer Roberta Flack, Zach Brown Band's John Driscoll Hopkins, former NFL player Eric Stevens, and Canadian actor Kenneth Mitchell. And for those people who are, because I do reality TV, I watch a lot of shows on TLC. For those who watched Cake Boss, knows that Buddy's mom also was diagnosed with ALS and later passed away. Approximately 1,000 Canadians are diagnosed with ALS every year, according to ALS Canada. 4,000 are currently living with the disease. So that's that one. Let's take a break from me. I'll come back in later for something else. Let's go back over to both me and Mikel. Yeah.
So, um, I have something. So,
Okay.
basically, where do you heard this phrase from? Stop the count, stop the count, stop the count.
I feel like I've heard that, but I don't. Maybe jog my memory.
Yes. Yeah, Donald Trump did say that,
Oh
at
God.
one point. But, but according
We're gonna
to
be talking
elect
about him a lot this
mm,
episode. Be
oh, wait,
prepared.
really? Really?
Yeah.
Okay. According to Election Canada, uh, they started to recount the votes and every single thing. So,
Why?
this is what they do every
Okay.
election.
Okay. Okay.
Just to make sure to recount every single thing, make sure nothing is like missed and etc.
Mm-hmm.
But news about the Liberals, they inch another seat closer to majority government
Really?
on Saturday
Since the
after.
recount?
Yep.
Okay.
After the recount, their candidate as the winner in Quebec, riding in what, Terrebonne? Terrebonne? My bad of the pronunciation, by a margin of just one vote. One.
Wow.
One vote. Yeah. So that was according to the news, Canadian press.
Mm.
Uh Obviously they're most likely doing the recount just to, like I said, just to make sure everything's official and done with
Mm.
and and over with and yeah.
I
Um
wonder. I have questions as to why Trump is saying stop the count. And I know, like, he seems to be okay with Carney and whatever, but
yeah.
I wonder why he would. I wonder if that not so much about him, but just wonder in terms of like how things are done in the American election. I don't know if
Yeah.
like, how we do things a little differently here because like once a person wins, we know that the other candidate concedes, right? I don't
Mhm,
know if
mhm,
that's something we really do here in Canada in terms of another party concedes in the same sense. And I wonder if like once you concede that
mhm,
a count would never a recount would never happen because
mhm,
that
mhm.
party leader has conceded. So I don't know. It's interesting. Mm,
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly brings the Liberals to 170.
they were
The number
close.
that they're yeah, the number that they're too shy away from 172, which is gonna be majority government.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, well,
Oh,
we'll see what happens if
mhm,
once the recount, I guess,
mhm,
is finished.
mhm,
Um. So
mhm. Go ahead.
yeah. So yeah, like I said, we are going to be talking about Trump, but we're not going to be. I don't know if we're necessarily talking about Trump per se, but just
Mhm,
kind of the ripple effect of um stuff that's going on in terms of immigration. So we'll talk about that. But this has to do with the whole situation with the tariffs and buying Canadian. So we're
mhm,
going to be kind of talking about that right now. So
mhm,
the Buy Canadian movement is sending new ripples of concern through the executive offices of US-based consumer companies that banked on selling their products on Canadian retail shelves. California-based diaper maker Parasol Co. had been working since January with a distributor to expand the sale of its diapers and baby wipes to new retailers in Canada, including convenience stores, CEO Jessica Hung said. But in early March, the distributor, who Hung declined to name, halted work on the deal, she said, because of growing anti-American sentiment in Canada. Um, quote, they were instructed by a retailer to pause any American brand launch, Hung said, referring to the distributor. They told us they would reevaluate when market conditions allow. Um, that's the kind of disruption we would never expect, Hung said. I never heard of this happening until now. Well, we've never dealt with something like this until now. It's definitely quite a bit of headwinds. A dramatic reshuffling of Canada's retail shelves illustrates the impact of patriotic consumerism in Canada, which
Mhm.
imported. Hmm?
Oh, go ahead. Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, which imported nearly 350 billion US dollars of products from the United States in 2024, making it its largest trading partner.
Mm,
US President Donald Trump jabs to annex Canada, the imposition of a 25% levy on steel and aluminum from Canada, as we know,
mhm,
and threats to tax all other imports from the country have prompted a rallying cry among many Canadian shoppers to eschew US made products. Parasol, which sells its products primarily online and at Target stores in the US, are working on labeling its packages in French for Canadian shoppers. So they're doing the work. They want to do the work in order to sell here in
mhm,
Canada.
mm,
She added that she had already begun making decisions about which products would be part of the now scrapped Canada distribution agreement.
mm,
Shoppers, Shopper Rebecca Asselin, who is a mom and health insurance professional from Saint Jean sur Richelieu, I think is how you say it,
mm,
Quebec, has been using social media to share her story about her search for Canadian products. She
mm,
told Reuters she recently switched to purchasing Royale diapers. I did not know Royale made diapers, made
mhm.
by Irving Personal Care of Moncton, New Brunswick, one of the only manufacturers of baby diapers and training pants in Canada. The only one. That's mm. Anyway. Quote, I never really considered before where diapers were made, but apparently Canadian made diapers are kind of hard to come by. That's a big change for us. Irving, a personal care said retailers from all over Canada have been reaching out to discuss increasing distribution. Quote, as the only branded baby diaper made in Canada, our weekly shipments have quadrupled. Jason McAllister, Irving
Mm,
Personal Care's vice president of business operations, told Reuters. So, um, I think that's kind of it on the diapers.
mhm,
So the Buy Canadian movement is not just hampering one diaper business, but also drinks and citrus fruit from the US, companies say, which it's going to get real difficult to get like oranges or something because Florida oranges. Anyway,
mhm, uh,
in early March, Jack Daniels maker Brown Forman called the removal of American bourbon and whiskey from Canadian liquor stores worse than Canada's retaliatory tariffs and a disproportionate response to Trump's levies. I don't think it is. Like, we're going to
mhm,
retaliate. So we're going to retaliate. And I'm sorry it's on your company, but it is what it is. Um, a source familiar with California's citrus fruit exports told Reuters in early March that Canadian retailers have canceled their orders. GT's Living Foods, based in Los Angeles, California, and known for its Synergy kombucha, I'm fine, products, said
mhm,
retailers in Canada,
mhm,
including Walmart, have been
mhm,
placing orders for fewer products because of tariff uncertainty. The distributors for Walmart Canada, Loblaws, Metro, and Sobeys told us they will buy one truck instead of two trucks of products because retailers are being cautious and they are waiting to see how this tariff situation will play out, said Daniel Brokowski, who managed
Uh,
the accounts of these retailers for GT's Living Foods and was senior vice president of sales until mid-March. Walmart said it will continue to work closely with suppliers to find the best way forward during these uncertain times. Loblaws and Sobeys did not respond to Reuters' request for comment. Um, Metro said it prioritizes local Canadian products whenever possible. Our intent is not to remove American products from our shelves if the tariffs take effect, which we know it did. We will evaluate as we do currently all product listings with the intent to offer the best value in products. Um,
uh,
yeah, so it does kind of, which we kind of been seeing. I'm gonna kind of skip through the rest of this, but um, it kind of seemed. I don't know how like you've been seeing it, but I've kind of noticed at least on the online waves that we are really hampering down on um Canadian-based products due to
uh,
the tariffs.
yeah, yeah. I've
Um,
been I've been seeing that a lot of places, like my own workplace, like
mhm,
if you put it on the stickers like Canada made, or
mhm,
a lot of grocery stores are putting up signs like in their aisles on their shelves, putting in, "This is made from Canada," or going to a store that said, "This is Canadian made," like
mhm.
a sign right there. So yeah, a lot of stores are just basically ampering down on that and just like using that as a what you call it? I say a marketing tool just to get in,
Probably.
yeah,
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
customers who believe in their Canadian made stuff. So
And
yeah.
I'm gonna have two things here that I'm gonna say. The
Yeah.
first thing is when it comes to like the diapers and that's Canadian made, the only brand that's Canadian made,
Uh-huh.
I would be curious to know like how much their diapers are in comparison to buying like a Huggies or a Pampers or a Kirkland if that's you go that way.
Uh-huh.
These main like obviously Pampers and Huggies are the main you know diaper product. Um, how much that costs in comparison to buying those other brands?
Uh-huh.
I would be really curious to know what that is. And I think also too, like a lot of people these days tend to go reusable diapers. Not me, not I, but
Uh-huh.
that would be like some people do. So I'm kind of curious to kind of know like what is the difference in price,
Uh-huh.
especially with the only being the only diaper product in Canada and it being based in kind of one spot in Moncton. So it would be kind of I'm interested in kind of knowing like what the prices are with that.
Uh-huh.
And secondly, there's a little different than business, Canadian made products. But I'm also noticing that they're kind of getting celebrities who are Canadian
Uh-huh.
um, being a part of branding. And the one thing I'm thinking of, like we obviously have like Sidney Crosby already kind of doing the Tim Hortons thing. He's been doing that for years. But Ryan Reynolds, like, have you seen those commercials with Ryan Reynolds? That's now like he has he's working side by side with Tim Hortons and creating this
I
meal that
saw
you can get that's Ryan Reynolds or,
yeah.
inspired.
Yeah, I saw one commercial that's basically it. That
Yeah.
yeah.
The first time I saw it was actually an advertisement in Union Station.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, I noticed it was a Tim Hortons
I
advertisement.
mean,
And I saw Ryan Reynolds' face attached to it. And I'm like,
I mean, I mean,
Ryan Reynolds?
he is Canadian, so.
Oh, well, yes, I know that's why I said Canadian celebrity. But yes, I know he's Canadian. Um, yes, guys, you hear that? He belongs to us. The other Ryan does too. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
the other Ryan's
Is it
Canadian too.
Gosling? Yeah.
Ryan Gosling, yeah. They're both the hot Ryans are Canadian. Anyways,
Mhm,
um, so yeah, like it would be kind of honestly, like I think that's what kind of what they're heading towards is
mhm,
like
mhm,
having these Canadian celebrities who clearly probably do not live in Canada. I'm sure Ryan Reynolds does not live in Canada, but it would be like it's like kind of interesting, kind of seeing them also kind of be a part of Canada Strong in a sense. Because I do wonder, would Ryan Reynolds have teamed up with Tim Hortons before all of this? I don't know. Um, and Tim Hortons obviously being a huge Canadian staple, so I don't know.
Mm, mm,
Anyways,
mhm, mm,
anytime I can see Ryan Reynolds' face, I'm perfectly fine with that. Anyway.
mm, mm,
Okay, next one from me. So, in an extensive new chat with Deadline, Warner Brothers CEO Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdi has spilled the beans on a handful of new projects in the works at the studio, confirming along the way that a brand new installment in the Gremlins film franchise is on the mend. This confirms a report from this past January, where we have learned, or potentially people had learned, that a new Gremlins movie from Chris Columbus with a franchise hope over at Warner Brothers. Abdi said in the new interview with Deadline, a quote, "We're super excited about Amblin developing with Chris Columbus, new entries in the Gremlins and Goonies franchises." Chris Columbus was of course the writer of the original Steven Spielberg produced Gremlins, so it's very exciting to hear that Columbus is back on board with the franchise. Talk of a third Gremlins movie has come and gone several times over the years, um, and you can all read all about that. The you could if you go to Bloody Disgusting website and just type in Gremlins, probably will find it. Um, we first heard about a new script written by Chris Columbus back in 2017, with that iteration of the script described as being both twisted and dark. He had said, quote, "I'm really proud of the script. It is as twisted and dark as anything, so we'll see. It's always a budgetary conversation, and we're going to shoot it. I wanted to go back to the really twisted sensibility of the first movie, and that was a very easy place for me to fall back into and start writing again. So hopefully we'll see that movie soon." In the same chat with Deadline, Mike DeLuca also seemed to confirm that a sequel to last year's Tim Burton directed franchise return, Beetlejuice is also on the way. When asked if WB was already developing sequels to Minecraft and or Beetlejuice, he replied, "Imminently. The ink might not be dry on the deals yet, but imminently." So that's cool. Next one. So the Phantom of the Opera is returning to Broadway with a few tweaks. So just 2 years since the famed musical shuttered on the Great White Way, it appears the haunting notes of Andrew Lloyd Webber will once again enchant audiences. A few changes are in store, starting with the production's name. It's now called Masquerade, which takes inspiration from one of the musical's most elaborate dance sequences. Furthermore, the production will not return to its home at the Majestic Theater. Instead, the show will enchant audiences on West 57th Street in the old Lee's Art Shop building. For now, those curious to learn more can submit their name and email to a website featuring the Phantom's iconic mask. I have the link. I will quote it noted in the show notes. Additionally, an Instagram account for the play is live, featuring images in black and red along with quotes from the Tony-winning musical, such as "Sing Once Again with Me." The Phantom of the Opera was Broadway's longest-running show and took its final bow on February 18th, 2023, following a 35th anniversary celebration on January 26th. The Cameron McIntosh and the Really Useful Group's Broadway production of Andrew Lloyd Webber's The Phantom of the Opera, directed by Harold Prince, the longest-running show in Broadway history, is confirmed to play its final 5 months, a rep for the show told People in a statement. As for London's West End production, it has yet to stop dropping its chandelier since opening in 1986. A film adaptation directed by Joel was released in 2004, starring Gerard Butler and Emmy Rossum. know what I'm watching. While the run date has not yet been specified for Masquerade, it is expected to run later this year. So eyes out for that one. So next one. So HBO has announced quite recently that it has been finalized two key roles in the upcoming Harry Potter TV series, Professor Quirrell and Hogwarts caretaker Argus Fletch. So British stage actor Luke Fallon will take on the role of the nervous defense against the dark arts professor who has more to him than meets the eye. Actor Ian Hart previously portrayed Quill in the first Potter film. Fallon, who's 29, is a theater standout who most recently played Hamlet for the Royal Shakespeare Company. Fallon is relatively unknown in the film and TV world, recently telling Deadline, quote, I would love to do something on screen. There's no pretending that I turn lots of things down, but I'm just waiting for the reason to go to screen to be as exciting and as fulfilling as the things I get to do on stage now. Five-time BAFTA winner Paul Whitehouse has landed the role of the villainous Flitch, who was originated by David Bradley in the 8 Potter films. Whitehouse, who is 66, is a Welsh actor and a comedian known for his work in British comedies like The Fast Show and Harry and Paul. He also worked with director Tim Burton on The Corpse Bride and Alice in Wonderland and had a role in 2017's The Death of, I think it's Stalin. Fallon and Whitehouse joined the growing cast of the HBO series, which is being executive produced by Potter author J.K. Rowling, which I am actually really shocked by. Thus far, American actor John Lithgow has been cast as Hogwarts headmaster Albus Dumbledore. In the films, Dumbledore was played by both Richard Harris, may he rest in peace, and then later Michael Gambon, may he also rest in peace, after Harris's death in 2002. British actress Janet McTeer is set to take on the role of Professor Minerva McGonagall, which was originated by Dame Maggie Smith, may she rest. McTeer, who is 63, which she looks incredible, is a two-time Oscar nominee who had notable roles in Ozark. You might remember her from that. She's incredible in that, till she not spoilers. Me Before You, The Women in Black, Into the Storm, and who played the goddess Hera opposite Jeff Goldblum's Zeus in the short-lived mythology series Chaos. Now, this part is interesting for me. So, the role of Professor Severus Snape, originated by the late Alan Rickman, has been appointed to Papa Isidu, who's known for his roles in I May Destroy You, Black Mirror, and The Holiday Colony, Genie opposite Melissa McCarthy. Now, there has been a lot of controversy with that particular actor being cast as Severus Snape, and I can understand it as a Harry Potter fan. It's going to be really difficult to see someone who we've pictured in our heads for so long play the role. Change is hard. That's all I can say. Um, Anyways, British comedian Nick Frost, who's best known for his Three Flavors Cornetto, hopefully I said that right, trilogy films, like Shaun of the Dead, and with longtime friend and collaborator Simon Pegg, is taking on the beloved part of gamekeeper Rupert Hagrid. Hagrid was originated by the late Robbie Coltrane. Quote, we're delighted to have such extraordinary talent on board, and we can't wait to see them bring these beloved characters to new life, said Francesca Gardner, showrunner and executive producer, and Mark Molloyd, director of multiple episodes and executive producer in a news release. The series has yet to cast the core roles of the magical pals Harry Potter, Hermione Granger, and Ron Weasley, which were originated by Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, and Rupert Grint in the hit films. No premiere date has been set for the series, which HBO calls a faithful adaptation of the 7 Potter books. So we shall see. Next one. So, a doctor born in the United States says she received an email from federal immigration authorities demanding that she leave the country immediately. Lisa Anderson, who is a physician from Cornwall, Connecticut, told NBC Connecticut well, this would have been quite recently, but she recently received a letter from the Department of Homeland Security telling her, quote, it is time for you to leave the United States. Immigration authorities have been pushing non-citizens to leave on their own volition, sorry, God, or self-deport, as the number of deportations remains at similar levels to last year. But Anderson, who is 58, was born in Pennsylvania and is a U.S. citizen. Hmm. Quote, the language seemed pretty threatening to whomever it might actually apply to, she said. A senior DHS official told NBC News that the department has been issuing the notices to individuals who do not have lawful status to remain in the country. Quote, if a non-personal email, such as an American citizen contact, was provided by the alien, notices may have been sent to unintended recipients, the official said. CBP is monitoring communications and will address any issues on a case-by-case basis. To be clear, if you are an alien, being in the United States is a privilege, not a right, the official said. We're acting in the best interest of the country, because that's my word, and enforcing the law accordingly. The email to Anderson comes days after a Boston immigration attorney, who is also a U.S. citizen, received the same email from DHS telling her to leave the country within 7 days. The attorney, Nicole, I think it's Machoni, told MSNBC that as of Tuesday, or around the time this came out, federal officials had not followed up. Pointing to the Boston email, Anderson said that she does not, quote, have anything to do with immigration. Anderson has been carrying her U.S. passport on her at all times since receiving the email and is seeking an immigration attorney, saying, quote, it does make me concerned. There are a lot of more people out there like me who probably also thought this was a spam, or who probably didn't realize I have a. So if you're getting anything like that and you shouldn't be, yeah, you definitely make sure you are being protected. Okay, so next one, Pope Francis, committed to service, humility, and healing, has died at 88. So Pope Francis, whose 12-year papacy ushered in a more open, welcoming Catholic Church that prioritized empathy for the poor and disenfranchised, including Indigenous victims of Canada's church-run residential schools, has died at 88, the Vatican said in a video statement. Quote, dear brothers and sisters, it is with profound sadness I must announce the death of our Holy Father Francis, said by Cardinal Kevin Farrell, announced on the Vatican's TV channel. At 7:35 this morning, the Bishop of Rome, Francis, returned to the house of the Father. The Vatican said Francis died of a cerebral stroke that put him into a coma and led to irreversible heart failure. The election of George Mario Bergoglio as leader of the Roman Catholic Church on March 13th, 2013, came about under remarkable circumstances after Pope Benedict, the Jesus Lord, whatever that it's supposed to be, surprise resignation, if you all remember that one. Francis ushered in a number of firsts for a pope, the first from Latin America, the first from the Jesuit order, and the first to take the name Francis. Francis also made history in the spring of 2022 when he apologized for the deplorable conduct of some members of the Catholic Church in Canada's residential school system. A few months later, he said that system had carried out a cultural genocide. So, humble beginnings before religious life. So, when Francis appeared on the central balcony of St. Peter's Basilica moments after his election, he joked the cardinals almost went to the ends of the earth to find him. He hailed far from the power center of the Vatican, born in Buenos Aires, I'm fine, on December 17th, 1936, the eldest of 5 children of Italian immigrants. As a boy, Francis worked in the family grocery store, played soccer, and danced the tango. He attended church regularly with his family, but was not especially religious until he had a powerful experience during confession as a teen. In 1969, he was ordained into the priesthood as part of the Jesuits, the Catholic order known for education and missionary work. 4 years later, he became head of the Jesuits in Argentina, then Archbishop of Buenos Aires in 1998. In 2001, he was appointed a cardinal by Pope John Paul II. As leader of the Roman Catholic Church, Francis was seen as a progressive pontiff, far less concerned about enforcing church doctrine than his predecessors John Paul II and Benedict, and more interested in opening church doors to those who felt excluded. From the start, his actions singled the kind of Catholic Church he desired, a poor church for the poor. He shunned the sumptuous politistic palace where previous popes had resided, opting instead to live in the small guest house inside the Vatican walls. He soon broke with other traditions, moving the Holy Thursday feet washing ceremony held 3 days before Easter Sunday from a church in Rome to inside prisons, where he became the first pontiff to include women and non Christians among the inmates whose feet he washed. In July 2013, 3 months after becoming Pope, Francis said in a response to a reporter's question, "If a person is gay and seeks God and has goodwill, who am I to judge?" He later encouraged same sex parents to attend Mass with their children and called laws that criminalized homosexuality unjust. Quote, "As a gay Catholic, he gave me joy and hope," said Mark Guav, I think it's Garvara, who is I'm going to say the acronym here because I know it's different. 2S LGBTQ plus member of Concerned Lay Catholics of Canada, a group concerned with issues affecting 2S LGBTQ plus Catholics, women, Indigenous people, and abuse survivors. He reminded me that I am a beloved child of God. Following a global summit on the future of the Catholic Church in December 2023, the Pope authorized priests to offer informal blessings to couples in quote unquote irregular, but I kind of hate that, same sex unions, creating an exception for Africa after bishops from the continent protested. Early in his papacy, the Pope said he was not going to obsess over or opposing gay marriage, abortion, and issues like that, said Reverend Thomas Rees, a Jesuit priest and senior analyst at the US-based religion news service. What he did obsess over was the plight of refugees and global warming. In June 2015, Francis released Laudato Si, the first ever papal document on the environment. Its hard-hitting political analysis and focus on global inequality called upon world leaders for an urgent response to the climate crisis. 8 years later, he issued the follow-up Laudato Deum. The Pope apologized several times for the Catholic Church's role in colonism and justifying the seizing of Indigenous peoples' lands. Over several days in the early spring of 2022, he met with Indigenous delegates and supporters who traveled from Canada to the Vatican and spoke of his new sorrow and shame about the abuse inflicted upon Indigenous children. In July 2022, Francis made what he called a penitential pilgrimage, I think I said that wrong, to Canada to emphasize reconciliation and apologize for members of the Catholic Church who cooperated with the government's devastating policy of Indigenous residential schools. The Pope, however, stopped short of saying the Catholic Church as an institution was responsible, disappointing some Indigenous people. So, weighing in on Gaza and Ukraine. So, in his final address from the balcony overlooking St. Peter's Square a day before he died, he made an often repeated plea for an end to the 18-month war in Gaza. He called for an immediate ceasefire, condemned the deplorable humanitarian situation, and appealed for the release of hostages held by Hamas militants in Gaza. In early 2024, in an interview with the Swiss broadcaster RSI, Pope Francis said he thought Ukraine should have the courage of the white flag and negotiate with Russia, interesting, which had invaded its neighbor in February 2022, leading to the deaths of tens of thousands of people. The comments triggered widespread anger, with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, I think that's how you say it, dismissing them as a virtual mediation from a distant religious figure not involved in helping his country. The Vatican clarified the comments a few days later, saying the Pope did not mean for Ukraine to surrender. But observers said Francis's comments on the Russian invasion betrayed a far weaker grasp on the history of Eastern Europe and Russia than his predecessors John Paul II and Benedict the God knows what. The Pope failed to see the war in Ukraine as a colonial war, as a potentially genocidal war, said Massimo, I love the name Massimo, Fagaloi, a professor of theology and religious studies at Villanova University near Philadelphia. This was surprising because Pope Francis was very vocal on the dark chapters of colonism. So, Francis brought transparency to a Vatican long plagued by allegations of financial corruption. But victims groups and some observers say his response to the most damaging issue to the Catholic Church, the decades-old child sexual abuse scandals, fell short. In 2014, Francis created the Pontifical, I think is how you say it, Commission for the Protection of Minors. In 2017, two prominent abuse survivors on the commission resigned, citing a resistance, reluctance, and a lack of cooperation. 6 years later, a founding member, Reverend Hans Zollner, left for similar reasons. Francis's first most egregious misstep was to defend Chilean Bishop Juan Barros, accused of ignoring a preacher's long-standing abuse of minors. In early 2018, Francis dismissed the accusations against Barros as, I think it's calumny or slander, angering victims. A few months later, he apologized, saying he had made a grave error in defending Barros and accepted the bishop's resignation. Following a global summit on clerical sexual abuse of the Vatican in 2019, the Pope introduced new regulations to report abuse to church officials and investigate bishops involved in abuse or cover ups. He updated the law in 2013, but the Vatican provided no data on the effectiveness of the changes. Victims reported silence and stonewalling, and the Vatican's own Child Protection Advisory Commission says structural problems prevented basic justice. While Francis espoused what were seen by many as liberal attitudes for the head of a patriarchal, theocratic monarchy, got it, he believed human rights extended to the womb and opposed abortion, even when the fetus was likely to die. Several times the Pope compared the procedure to hiring a hitman and said he respected the 2022 U.S. Supreme Court reversal of the nearly 50-year-old Roe v. Wade ruling that recognized the constitutional right to abortion. I mean, this is angering for me to hear nonetheless, but I don't expect anything less from the Catholic Church. Francis was the first pontiff to appoint several women to senior Vatican positions and give voting rights to female participants of a global church gathering. He also amended church laws to allow women to have greater roles during Mass. While he expressed openness to women becoming deacons, he remained steadfast in his opposition to female ordination. Francis, like previous popes, still viewed women as special or exotic or needing to be studied, not as equal persons in the church, said Mary Ellen Crone of the Canadian group Catholic Network for Women's Equality. While Francis did not alter Catholic Church doctrine, he loosened rules and decentralized decision-making, something that rankled our conservative clergy members and politicians who believed he made too many concessions to modernize on social issues. The late Australian Cardinal George Pell, whose conviction for molestation was quashed after several months of imprisonment, described Francis's papacy as a catastrophe and bemoaned his neo-Marxist jargon about exclusion in an anonymous memo, clearly not anonymous, whose publisher later revealed was written by Pell. So Francis's papacy lasted for longer than he himself predicted. In 2015, he said he thought his pontification would span another 1 to 3 years, saying he believed the Lord has placed me here for a short time and nothing more. His health was a concern even before the constant demands of being head of the Roman Catholic Church. At 21, he had part of his right lung removed due to a respiratory infection. In 2021, Francis was hospitalized when he had part of his colon removed, and again 2 years later to repair an abdominal hernia and remove intestinal scar tissue. In later years, he suffered from regular bouts of the flu, bronchitis, and colds, often losing his voice, as well as sciatica and strained knee ligaments that made it necessary for him to use a cane, walker, or wheelchair. His latest bout of bronchitis was diagnosed on February 6, 2025, and as it worsened to become pneumonia, he was admitted to hospital where he stayed for 5 weeks. So, in terms of picking his successor, as cardinals from around the world head to Rome to take part in the conclave to elect the next pope, Francis's legacy will be felt. 73% of voting cardinals were appointed by the Argentinian. Still, observers say that does not mean that the next pope's views will necessarily align with those of Francis. Fargoli said he expects a rebalancing with the next pope, saying, quote, I think Pope Francis's greatest legacy is that he was the first global pope, a pope who made it very clear that the church is not wedded forever to European and Mediterranean culture. This is much bigger college of cardinals, much more diverse, from many more countries. It's going to be highly unpredictable conclave. So we'll see how that goes, but we'll take a break from me for now. We'll go back to me and Mikel, and I'll come in a little later with more. Let's move on to the next thing.
Mhm,
So this has to do with the immigration stuff kind
mhm,
of happening in the States right now. I don't know if you've heard anything about this, but Andrea Hernandez Romero, who is a gay makeup artist who came to the United States last year in search of asylum, is one of 238 Venezuelan migrants who were flown from the US to a maximum security prison in El Salvador. This is 3 weeks ago. It's probably been about a month or so ago now,
mhm, mhm,
month to 5 weeks ago. President Trump, who campaigned on erecting the Venezuelan gang known as Tren de Aragua, brokered a deal with El Salvador's president that allows the U.S. to send deportees to the Terrorism Confinement Center, or otherwise known as CCOT.
mm,
The Trump administration used the Alien Enemies Act, which is a law not invoked since World War II, to send many of the Venezuelans there, claiming they were all terrorists and violent gang members. Lawyers and family members of the Venezuelan migrants told 60 Minutes they've had no contact with the men since they arrived in El Salvador. Quote, our client, who is in the middle of seeking asylum, just disappeared. One day he was there, and the next day we're supposed to have court, and he wasn't brought to court. And this was said by, I'm going to butcher her last name, Lindsay Toklesowski, who is Hernandez Romero's lawyer. So Hernandez Romero left his home country last May because he was targeted for being gay. And for his political views, his attorney says, he made the long trek north through the Darien Gap, which is a 60-mile roadless stretch of dense forest between Colombia and Panama, to Mexico, where he eventually got an appointment to seek asylum in the United States. At a legal border crossing near San Diego, he was taken into custody while his case was processed. His lawyer said he had a strong asylum case. Hernandez Romero had what is known as a credible fear interview, the first step
mm,
in the process of seeking asylum in the U.S.
mm,
Quote, and the government had found that his threats against him were credible and that he had a real probability of winning an asylum claim. But last month, Hernandez Romero did not appear for a court hearing in the U.S. Instead, he and others were taken in shackles to El Salvador. His lawyer did not know where he was.
mm,
Photos taken by Time magazine photographer Philip Halsinger show Hernandez Romero at Secot. Halsinger said he heard a young man say, quote, "I'm not a gang member. I'm gay. I'm a stylist." The young man cried for his mother as he was slapped and had his head shaved. This was
mm,
said by Halsinger.
mhm,
Quote, "It's horrifying to see someone who we've met and know as a sweet, funny artist in the most horrible conditions I could imagine," his lawyer said. She said she fears for her client's safety. Quote, "We have grave concerns about whether he can survive." Because
mhm,
again, this is a gay man, and I don't know if he is presenting as a gay man, if he's more straight presenting.
mhm,
I don't know, maybe straight presenting, he can maybe get through a little bit more. But if not, like, if he is surrounded by potential gang members, which I wouldn't even be surprised if half of them actually are not. I would not be surprised. Um, but I would be fearful of his safety as well.
mm,
Hernandez Romero's tattoos were also visible in the photo taken of him by Holsinger. Those tattoos, which were crowns, were the only evidence that U.S. immigration officials presented in court to accuse him of being part of the Tren de Argua gang, saying,
mhm,
quote, "These are tattoos that not only have a plausible explanation because he is someone who worked in the beauty pageant industry, which would explain the crowns, but
mhm,
also the crowns themselves were on top of the names of his parents," his
mhm,
lawyer said. The most plausible explanation for that is that his mom and dad are his king and queen. So, a Department of Homeland Security spokeswoman said on social media that its intelligence assessments, quote, "go well beyond just gang affiliate tattoos." Then
mm,
explain yourself. She said Hernandez Romero's own social media indicates he is a member of Tren de Argua. Be interested to see what they mean by that.
mhm,
60 Minutes reviewed posts on Hernandez Romero's social media going back a decade. Posts include photos of Hernandez Romero with makeup brushes and a bejeweled crown. So where's the gang affiliated posts that these people are talking about?
mm,
Anyway, his lawyer said she thinks it's unlikely that the US government knows something she doesn't know about her client, saying, quote, "But if it was possible that they had some information, they should follow the Constitution, present that information, give us the ability to reply to it." Tattoos in social media were also used to link Venezuelan migrant Jersey Reyes Barrios to the Tren de Aragua gang, government documents show. Um, Immigration court documents included Facebook posts from 14 years ago showing him flashing what officers said was a gang sign. But his girlfriend told 60 Minutes the gesture was about rock and roll, not gang affiliated anything.
mhm,
Immigration agents also flagged Reyes Barrero's crown tattoo as a gang symbol, but they did not mention the crown is above a soccer ball.
mm,
Reyes Barreros was a soccer player in Venezuela. His lawyer
mhm,
said the tattoo honors his favorite team, Real Madrid, whose logo includes a crown.
mm,
Organized crime and analysis say that while members of the Salvadorian MS-13 gang can often be identified by signature tattoos, Tren de Aragua is different. Quote, after expert tells us tattoos are not a reliable indicator of whether you're part of this particular gang, said Lee Gillerant, who is an attorney for the American Civil Liberties Union.
mhm,
So the Trump administration has released very little information about the Venezuelan migrants sent
right,
to prison in El Salvador, but internal government documents obtained by 60 Minutes and public records indicate that an overwhelming majority have no apparent criminal convictions or even criminal charges.
mm,
The Trump administration says just because the migrants don't have criminal record does not mean they are not in a gang and are not dangerous. Fair,
what?
but that might not be the case here.
That makes no sense.
It can happen, I'm sure, that certain gang members may not have a criminal record, but I
Mm,
don't think that's the majority. because even if you're not being charged with gang-related criminal acts, you
Mhm.
could still be charged with other criminal acts, right?
Right.
So that's not unheard. It doesn't make sense that because I don't think the majority is doesn't have a criminal record. It's but
I
anyways,
see. Yeah.
Border star Tom Homan has said that immigration agents spent hours conducting rigorous checks on each of the men to confirm they are members of Tren Deragura. Apparently, they didn't. But after cross-referencing the internal documents with domestic and international court filings, news reports, and arrest records, 60 Minutes could not find criminal records for 75% of the Venezuelans now sitting in prison in El Salvador.
Mm.
75. The analysis did show that at least 22% of the men on the list do have criminal records in the US or abroad. Most of the offenses are non-violent, though, such as theft, shoplifting, and trespassing. About a dozen are accused of more serious crimes, including murder, rape, assault, and kidnapping. So those are the problem ones, but the other ones, obviously, not so much.
Mhm.
For 3% of those deported, it is unclear whether a criminal record exists. In response to 60 Minutes findings, a Department of Homeland Security spokeswoman said many of those without criminal records, quote, are actually terrorists, human rights abusers, gangsters, and more. They just don't have a rap sheet in the US. Anyways, so in terms of the 1798 Alien Enemies Act, so long time ago here. So in October, Homan told 60 Minutes that the Trump administration's mass deportation plan was started by removing the worst of the worst,
Huh.
saying, quote, we're going to prioritize those with convictions. But clearly you didn't. So, quote, we're going to prioritize those with convictions. We're going to prioritize national security threats. We have to do that. You got to get the worst first. Okay. While on the campaign trail, Mr. Trump, this article's great. Doesn't even say President Donald Trump. Mr. Trump said he would invoke the Alien Enemies Act to expedite the removal of Tren de Agura members from the U.S. Last month, he followed through and invoked the 1798 law, which allows the president to remove non-citizens without immigration hearings during times of war or evasion. See, that makes sense in 1798. Not so
Mhm.
much now, but anyways. Quote, every
Nope.
administration back to 1798 has understood this is wartime authority to be used when the United States is at war with a foreign government.
Uh-huh.
What? Okay. Gurland said, the administration is saying, quote, not only are we going to use it against a criminal organization, but you, the courts, have no role. You cannot tell us that we're violating the law or stop us. According to Gurland, the U.S. does not have the legal right to send someone who's been deported from the country to a foreign prison.
Mhm.
Um, Gurland pointed to World War II when the U.S. government invoked the Alien Enemies Act to detain certain immigrants from Italy when what was our Italy, Germany, and Japan. Quote, we sent people back to their home country. We didn't send them to a foreign prison. Um, Before the Venezuelan migrants arrived in El Salvador, U.S. District Court Judge James Boasberg ordered the Trump administration to turn the planes carrying the men around. Flight tracking data shows two planes were in the air at the time, and one was about to take off from Texas. Instead of turning around, all the planes made a stop at a military base in Honduras, and then, despite Boasberg's verbal and written orders, the planes all flew to El Salvador. So isn't that then not,
Mhm.
I wouldn't say breaking the law, but you're breaking a court order, which
Um,
is pretty serious thing to do.
uh-huh.
Um, since then, the US government has disclosed very few details about the operation. CBS News published the only list of all 238 Venezuelan deportees. The government is refusing to answer almost every question from the court. The government invoked state secrets privilege to try to withhold more detailed information about the deportation flights from Judge Boasberg. That's underhanded.
Huh.
Like, they're saying they can't even confirm details about the planes. A Homeland Security spokeswoman, who I guess she's just going to stay nameless, but hey, when asked what evidence the government has linking the men to Trend beyond tattoos and social media posts, cited state secrets and ongoing litigation as the reasons why she could not comment. I hate this.
Hmm.
Anyway, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, who visited CCAR last month, declined a 60 minutes request for an interview. So what's next for these men? So Gerland is leading the ACLU legal challenge against the Trump administration's efforts to send migrants to CCOT, saying, quote, if they are here illegally and don't have a right to stay, they can be deported back to their home country. If they've committed crimes, they can be prosecuted and perhaps spend many, many years in a U.S. prison. It's not a matter of can these individuals be punished. It's a matter of how the government is going to go about doing it. Once they
Uh,
start using wartime authority with no oversight, anything is possible. Anybody can be picked up. Gerland has spent decades challenging the immigration policy of the Democratic and Republican administrations, but he says he doesn't know whether the migrants sent to prison in El Salvador will ever see their families again. There's a real danger they may remain there.
huh.
This past week, the Trump administration admitted mistakenly deported Kilmer Abriguero Garcia, who is a 29-year-old Salvadorian man accused of being a gay member, to CCOT. He lived in Maryland with his wife and child, who are American citizens.
Uh-huh.
So, even though they have admitted it's a mistake, as far as I know currently, he still is there. They
Right.
haven't made steps to get him back to the States.
Gotcha.
In court papers, the government called it an administrative error, but said there's no way to get him back. On Friday, or whatever week this was, a federal judge ruled Abigail Garcia must be returned to the U.S. by Monday, April 7th. So, as I've just said, we are in May. I don't think that's happened. The Justice Department quickly repealed the order. Why are you appealing it? You literally admitted you messed up, but then you're
Huh.
going to appeal a court order demanding he be brought back to the States. Are we okay?
Huh.
We're not okay. Anyways, that's it for that. So I'm coming in here quick to talk about the Kilmore Abriguero Garcia, as we were talking about him in the other article. So he was living in Maryland with his wife and three children when he was deported to El Salvador, thrusting his case into the center of a pivotal legal battle, and this is still ongoing. The Trump administration has accused him of being a member of the Salvadorian MS-13 gang and used that in its justification for deporting him to his home country, despite a judge's order from 2019 barring him from being sent there. The father, who had lived in Maryland for 13 years, is now being held in notorious mega prison. The administration has called his incarceration there an administrative error. His wife and attorney denied the accusations against him and have been fighting for his return. They say he is a loving father and husband. He has never been charged with or convicted of a crime in the United States, records show. The legal fight over his return is ongoing. A federal judge has ordered, I believe actually it's currently, as of today, he is back, but in case I'm incorrect with that. Um, or he at least has like a date that he'll be coming back. I'm not sure. Um, So, a federal judge has ordered the Trump administration to facilitate Abigail Garcia's release, an order affirmed by the Supreme Court, and to provide evidence of the actions it has taken to get him back. The administration has since doubled down on its accusations that Abigail Garcia was a gang member and has said that because he is now in El Salvador, it does not have the authority to bring him back. After weeks of outcry and no trace of Abigail Garcia, he was temporarily released from prison on April 17th to meet with Senator Chris Van Hollen, a Democrat from Maryland. I think Abigail Garcia was shown in a photo wearing a button-down short sleeve shirt, and cap, sitting at a table with the senator. It is unclear what the two discussed, but Van Hollen said he called Abigail Garcia's wife to pass along his message of love. Quote, his conversation with me was the first communication he had had with anybody outside of prison since he was abducted. Great word. He said he felt very sad about being in prison because he had not committed any crimes. Van Hollen told reporters that Abigail Garcia has experienced trauma and framed his deportation as an illegal abduction. After meeting, Salvadorian President Nayib Bukele said the man will remain in prison now that he's been confirmed healthy. Bukele, who has championed his country's use of mass incarceration, said in a meeting with President Donald Trump at the White House that he would not release Abigail Garcia. Okay. As the high stakes case continues to play out in court, here's what we know about Abigail Garcia and the case. So, according to court filings, Kilmore Abigail Garcia was born in July of 1995 in the neighborhood of Los Nogales in El Salvador, where he helped his family run a business making paporis. I hope I said that right. I don't think I did, but anyways, a local cuisine. He has said he and his family received death threats and were extorted by the local gang Barrio 18. He crossed the border illegally near McAllen, Texas in March 2012 when he was 16 years old, according to documents posted on X, Twitter, by Attorney General Pam Bondi. From the border, Abigail Garcia made his way to Maryland to live with his brother, who is a U.S. citizen. In 2016, he met his wife, Jennifer Vasquez Sura, who is a U.S. citizen. They had a young son together, and Vasquez Sura has 2 children from a previous marriage. Abigail Garcia was a sheet metal apprentice and a member of the local union. 2019 arrest and gang allegations. So Abigail Garcia was arrested in March 2019 in a Home Depot parking lot in Hyattsville with 3 other men for loitering. His attorney said he was there looking for day labor work. Police assessed that he was a gang member at the time, according to arrest documents. He had no criminal record at the time, which the documents also state. When Abigail Garcia was arrested, he had just under an ounce of marijuana on him, according to the Hyattsville Police Department. The drugs were seized, but authorities did not file charges. One of the men arrested that day was known to the Prince George's County Police Department as an MS-13 gang member, according to a document titled Gang Field Interview Sheet. Police interviewed the men, including Abigail Garcia. The document said he was wearing a Chicago Bulls hat and a hoodie with rolls of money covering the eyes, ears, and mouth of the presidents on the bills. The officer said such clothing was indicative of the Hispanic gang culture. The officers also said they consulted with a past proven and reliable confidential source who advised that Abigail Garcia was an active gang member who had the moniker Chile. His attorneys noted Abigail Garcia was not charged and said in court documents that there is no reliable evidence in the record to support that he is a member of MS-13 and that the allegation is based on hearsay relayed by a confidential source and the clothing he was wearing. The Prince George's County Police Department said multiple members of its gang unit interviewed the 4 men after their arrest. Its detectives had reasonable suspicion, based upon their training and experience, to say that 3 of the men, including Abigail Garcia, displayed traits associated with MS-13 gang culture, the department said. This was based on tattoos, clothing, as well as information from a source. Police did not arrest any of the men, said they have not interacted with Abigail Garcia again, and have not received any new intelligence related to him. One of the detectives who interviewed the men was former officer Ivan Mendez, who was suspended in April of 2019 as part of an unrelated matter, police said. Mendez pleaded guilty to misconduct in office in that unrelated incident. As a result, the department proposed that Mendez's employment be terminated, which he accepted. A statement from police said Mendez was terminated from the department in December of 2022. Highsville officers knew there was an ongoing murder investigation in Prince George's County when they arrested the four individuals in the Home Depot parking lot. Police identified two men, one of whom was Abigail Garcia, as having been previously detained in a murder investigation, according to a Department of Homeland Security document from 2019. Abigail Garcia denied being connected to a murder investigation, the documents say, and he was never charged. After Abigail Garcia was arrested, he was taken to the Prince George's County Police Department's office for questioning in that homicide investigation, along with the three other individuals. After questioning, he was turned over to ICE. The release of documents from April 16 was the fullest detailing of the circumstance around his arrest and came after weeks of pressure on administration officials to prove its contention that Abigail Garcia was a member of the MS-13 gang. The Department of Homeland Security also posted on social media that Abigail Garcia's wife had received a temporary protective order against him in 2021. Vasquez Sura did not appear for the hearing, and the case was ultimately dismissed. She released a statement explaining what happened, saying, quote, "After surviving domestic violence in a previous relationship, I acted out of caution after a disagreement with Kilmer by seeking a civil protective order in case things escalated," Vasquez Sura said in a statement Wednesday. "Things did not escalate, and I decided not to follow through with the civil court process. No one is perfect, and no marriage is perfect. That is not justification for ICE's action of abducting him and deporting him to a country where he was supposed to be protected from deportation. The administration has also accused Abigail Garcia of being involved in human trafficking, but did not release evidence of the claim until April 18th, when the Department of Homeland Security released a report detailing a traffic stop in Tennessee in 2022, where an officer suspected Abigail Garcia of human trafficking while driving a vehicle with 8 other people. Abigail Garcia said the men were traveling for construction work, according to the report. Because there was no luggage in the vehicle, the officer on the scene suspected it could be human trafficking. The Tennessee Highway Patrol said in a statement that in 2022, Abigail Garcia was stopped for speeding on I-40. The agency contacted federal law enforcement, which decided not to detain him, the statement said. When the Highway Patrol ran his license, it discovered it was expired, and there was a note to call federal authorities because of his alleged affiliation with MS-13 following the incident in 2019, a senior Tennessee law enforcement official said. When the agency called ICE, it declined to pick him up and take him into custody, the official said. He was released without charges. The interaction between Abigail Garcia and the agency was cordial, the official said, adding that Abigail Garcia said the other men in the car were traveling between construction jobs. Quote, "Kilmer worked in construction and sometimes transported groups of workers between job sites, so it's entirely plausible he would have been pulled over while driving with others in the vehicle," his wife said in a statement. "He was not charged with any crime or cited for any wrongdoing. Unfortunately, Kilmer is currently imprisoned without contact with the outside world, which means he cannot respond to the claims or defend himself." So what was his immigration status? So after his 2019 arrest, Abigail Garcia was handed over to immigration authorities and placed in deportation proceedings. Vasquez Sura said she and her husband testified in his defense against the allegations that he was a gang member and sought his release, according to the court documents. She described the process as emotional and unfair. Despite their testimony, a judge denied Abigail Garcia's bond after his arrest outside the Home Depot, documents released by the Justice Department show. Although the court is reluctant to give evidentiary weight to the respondent's clothing as an indication of gang affiliation, the fact that a past proven and reliable source of information verified the respondent's gang membership, rank, and gang name is sufficient to support that the respondent is a gang member, and the respondent has failed to present evidence to refute that assertion, immigration judge Elizabeth Kelso wrote in 2019. Her decision was upheld by another judge in an appeals hearing. Kelser also noted there was a seeming discrepancy regarding why the government arrested him. One form stated it was in relation to a murder investigation, she wrote, while another states police approached him because, quote, he and others were loitering outside of Home Depot. Aguero Garcia responded that, quote, there is no reliable evidence in the record to support that he is a member of MS-13 and that the allegation is based on hearsay relayed by a confidential source. Abigail Garcia then filed for asylum and withholding of removal, a temporary form of legal protection so that he would not be deported to El Salvador. Before his 2019 hearing, authorities told the court that their evidence of Abigail Garcia's gang membership was limited to the gang field interview sheet from the Home Depot arrest, and they had nothing further to add. An immigration judge barred Abigail Garcia from being sent to El Salvador, saying he proved he had, quote, a well-founded fear of future persecution from local gangs. The court granted withholding of removal as long as he checked in with authorities annually, something he attested to doing in court filings. This gave him legal status in the United States temporarily and allowed him to receive a work permit. ICE did not appeal, and Abigail Garcia was released. He returned to his family, where he resumed working and began a 5-year apprenticeship program to become a licensed journeyman, his wife wrote in an affidavit. We really believed that the false accusations had been cleared up and that they were behind us. So on March 12th, Abigail Garcia was pulled over by Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers while he was with his child on his way home from a work site in Baltimore. He was on the phone with his wife and told her he had pulled into the parking lot of an IKEA when an officer put his lights on. Quote, I told him to put me on speaker when he was talking with the police because he does not feel confident speaking English, Vasquez Sura wrote in a declaration provided to the court. When an officer got to Abigail Garcia's car, according to Vasquez Sura, they told him to roll down the windows and step out of the vehicle. Abigail Garcia told the officer his son was in the back seat and had special needs. In a sworn declaration, she says officers then hung up the call, and minutes later, someone called back, identified themselves as a person with the Department of Homeland Security, and told her she needed to get there in 10 minutes to pick up her son, or they would call Child Protective Services. Wow. When she arrived, she said Abigail Garcia was on the curb in handcuffs, and officers on the scene claimed his immigration status had changed, Vasquez Sura wrote. They asked me if I wanted to say goodbye to Kilmer. Kilmer was crying, and I told him he would come back home because he hadn't done anything wrong. He was arrested by immigration authorities and transferred to facilities in Maryland, Louisiana, and Texas, the declaration said. During that time, Abigail Garcia spoke on the phone with his wife 5 times. On March 15th, he was sent to El Salvador. I never heard from Kilmer again, she said. On March 16th, the Salvadorian president posted a video showing people being loaded off planes and sent to the CECOT mega prison. Vasquez said she recognized her husband in photos and video from the prison where he was being dragged by guards because of the scars on his head and tattoos. On March 24th, Vasquez filed a federal lawsuit on behalf of her husband against the Trump administration in the District of Maryland. The suit argued that because of the 2019 order barring him from being sent to El Salvador, the Trump administration violated the law. Boom. Abigail Garcia's team asked the judge to order the government to immediately request his release, launching the ongoing legal battle over whether he will remain in the Salvadorian prison or returned to Maryland. So that's basically the information on that. So we'll go back to me and Mikel and talk more articles. We're going to take a breather from American immigration policies
Uh-huh.
and just step into even more darkness. But instead, this darkness is right here from good old Canada.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know if you heard about this, but
Uh-huh.
9 people were killed and multiple others injured after the driver of a black SUV slammed into a crowd. This would have been a couple weeks ago at a street festival in Vancouver celebrating the contributions of the Filipino Canadian community, the police said. Did you hear
Mhm.
about this?
Never heard. I haven't heard anything about it. No.
Really?
No. Uh,
Okay, so I'm gonna finish this article and kind of talk about on a separate note, kind of
all right.
the effects of this, but
Okay.
um, it happened shortly after 8 p.m. This would have, I believe, this happened during the Easter long weekend, actually. If I'm incorrect with that, please correct me, but I'm pretty sure it was during the Easter long weekend. Um, and it was a few blocks from East 41st Avenue in Fraser Street, where the La Pure Day block party was winding down, after drawing up to 100,000 people through the day. Interim Vancouver Police Chief Steve Ray says a 30-year-old Vancouver man is now in custody. In a statement read that Sunday morning, Prime Minister Mark Carney said more than 20 people were injured.
Uh-huh.
Carney said Canadians are heartbroken at what police are describing as a car ramming attack that happened during an occasion to gather and to celebrate the vibrancy of the Filipino Canadian community. He
Oh.
earlier posted on X that he is devastated to hear about the horrific events in Vancouver and offered his condolences to the loved ones of those killed and injured. Vancouver Coastal Health said late Saturday it had confirmed a code orange, indicating a mass casualty event, but was not able to confirm the number injured or dead. Shortly after 3 a.m. local time that Sunday, Vancouver police said on social media that there were 9 fatalities.
Uh-huh.
Earlier, videos posted on social media showed emergency crews at the scene, with several people lying on the ground, some appearing injured. Ray, in a midnight news briefing, said bystanders held the suspect until police could arrive. Damn straight. He
Uh-huh.
said the man was known to police in certain circumstances. Would love to know what he means by that. Ray said the event had been assessed and monitored for security with stakeholders, including those in charge of garbage trucks used in the past to block streets from traffic. The investigation is ongoing and is being led by the Vancouver Police Major Crime Section. Quote, "We are confident that this incident was not an act of terrorism or how about an act of racism?" Because I mean, it seemed really pointed that it was a Filipino um uh, celebration. Well, celebration is the right word to use, but
Uh-huh.
that's it seems really interesting. Um, so in case you're like me and have no clue what Lapu Lapu Day is, it's named after an indigenous resistance fighter in the Philippines who fought against Spanish colonization in the 16th century. Saturday's events was the second annual street celebration of the day in Vancouver, and organizers had said it was an opportunity to mark, quote, the enduring impact on Filipino values, notably the spirit of, I think it's Bahayan, the
Uh-huh.
collective community effort.
Uh-huh.
After South Asians and Chinese, the Filipino community is the third largest cultural group in BC.
Uh-huh.
Statistics Canada says more than 174,000 people in the community represent 3.5% of the province's total population. Chris Pangolin, who's a Toronto based journalist, flew to Vancouver to attend the Lapu Lapu Day celebrations.
Uh-huh.
He described the event as a beautiful day filled with wonderful performances, but said the aftermath has left him shaken.
Uh,
Quote, "It's something you don't expect to see in your lifetime," he told the CBC's Stephen Quinn. Pangolin said the show was wrapping up, and the festival's main act, Filipino American rapper Apple de App of the Black Eyed Peas. Oh, cool. That's cool. I know exactly who that is now. Had already finished his set.
mm,
Crews were in the process of tearing down the stage, tents, and vendor stalls when the incident happened. Um, he said crews lifted a barricade that had been blocking traffic to allow a vehicle to enter, while some cars were being guided carefully through the crowds.
mhm,
Pangolin said one car suddenly plowed through. Um, plowed through. Said one car suddenly, yeah, plowed through the street at high speed. Then we realized what was happening, and everybody started yelling. The driver just slammed the pedal down and rammed into hundreds of people. It was like seeing a bowling ball hit all the bowling pins and all the pins flying up in the air. Pangolin, who has previously worked in news, said witnessing what happened in person was overwhelming. As someone who worked in news, you get numb to seeing these things, but
Uh-huh.
seeing it in real life is just shocking.
Right.
It was like a war zone. There were bodies all over the ground, he said, adding he saw countless people injured. Another eyewitness, Joshua Polentan, expressed his anger over what happened, saying, quote, "I am mad at whoever did that because why would you do that? I don't know if it was a hate crime, but it was just wrong." I would say it's a hate crime.
Uh,
James Curzat, who a Vancouver business owner, was at the event and heard a car rev its engine and then a loud noise, like a loud bang. We saw people on the road crying. Others were running, shouting, or even screaming, asking for help. Um, so, in a statement posted on Instagram, Filipino BC said it was devastated by the tragedy and urged those affected to seek help.
uh,
Quote, "We are still finding the words to express the deep heartbreak brought on by this senseless tragedy. We are devastated for the families and victims."
right.
The organization encouraged community members to check in with one another and assess available mental health resources. Victim services are available 24/7 for those who witnessed or experienced trauma by calling or texting 1-800-563-0808 or emailing 211-victimlinkbc at uwbc.ca.
Uh,
So, I'll kind of leave it at that because we kind of go into what the politicians have to say and stuff like that. We don't really need to go into it. Except that King Charles also sent his condolences in a post. So it got that far.
mm,
So what I'll say though, this felt really reminiscent to kind of what happened here in Toronto a few years ago, which I don't know if I don't know if you know about it. I don't know if anyone else remembers about it. But in case you don't, I'm trying to remember exactly what year it was. I think it was 2017 or 2018. I think it was 2017.
mhm,
And a man very similar to the situation, um, just started ramming his car into people in the Yonge and Shepherd area. Um, and I remember, I think my boss had a discovery at Yonge and Shepherd because one of the major court reporter offices, they
uh-huh,
have a location at Yonge and Shepherd. I mean, he was okay, obviously, but my mom also experienced the same thing that her boss was also supposed to be in that area. So it was a very scary situation, and kind of how Toronto responded to that situation was putting up barricades. Um, it was a really scary time, even though they caught him. He's in prison now,
mhm,
but it was still really scary that the thought that someone can just take their vehicle, in his case, he was driving a white van, but could just take their vehicle and just start ramming into people. And this was even more random because it was just like there was no event happening. Nothing like that was going on. He just started driving and ramming it.
uh,
And this, you think, okay, that's an isolated situation that's never going to happen again. And to hear that this happens again many
uh,
years later, in a different province, it's just like, what is going on that this
right.
is happening and is happening again? And luckily, they, as I said, I'm happy to know they caught this guy.
Uh-huh,
But it's just like, what is going through people's minds to just start driving into people? Like, I really think, like, at least with the guy who did it in Toronto,
uh-huh,
he was mentally ill. I think he's mentally ill. This guy, I don't know much about him. I don't know what has come out about him, but that's why I do feel it's a hate crime. So I don't know, but
uh,
I have seen since this event happened,
Mhm,
this incident happened in Vancouver, that Toronto has been responding again with the barricades in a different
mhm,
way, but they've been putting
mhm,
up those barricades again.
mhm,
And because I think as people who work or live in Toronto and hear this is happening again, it just brings back all those memories of Toronto being so afraid that something like this is gonna happen again. Um, but yeah, like I mentioned it there. If anyone was involved in this or know someone who was involved in this,
mhm.
um, just make sure you're reaching out for help because
Alright.
yeah. So I have another article here. Just doing the one now. We'll go right back to me, Mikkel. So Kim Kardashian was turned down when attempting to purchase a family heirloom. As the executor of O.J. Simpson's estate, Malcolm Lavarnge, who we have talked about before, sells Simpson's assets to pay off leftover debts. The Skimp's founder, who is 44 now, reached out to offer $15,000 for a Bible inscribed with her late father, Robert Kardashian Sr. But Lavergne tells people he denied Kim's request because the item was already under contract with the court to be auctioned off. Okay, interesting. The amount is why I had no choice because why would I spend $15,000 of estate money? Why would I spend $15,000 on attorney's fees to sell it to Kim for $15,000? The Verge explains. It's a zero sum game. That's a bad business model. If Kim had offered $150,000 for it, we would have been in court getting this approved outside of the auction. Kim can bid on it online, he adds, of the item, which currently has a leading $9,800 bid. She may even get it cheaper than the 15 grand, so who knows? In addition to the sentimental value the Bible holds for the Kardashians, Lavergne points out that Robert Sr.'s handwritten note was dated June 18th, 1994, the day after Simpson was arrested and charged with murdering his ex-wife, Nicole Simpson, and her friend Ronald Goldman. Quote, OJ, this book will help, Robert Sr. wrote in the note. God loves and he will speak to you with his words. Read this book every day. God has a definite, I'm fine, plan for your future, for your life. Right. You are his child and he will use you again. I love you and God loves you. TMZ was the first to report the news. The Kardashian family patriarch always stood by Simpson's side, going on to act as his defense attorney in the infamous murder trial, at the end of which Simpson was acquitted on all counts. He was later found guilty in a civil trial in 1997. Robert Sr. died in September 2003 at the age of 59, just 8 weeks after being diagnosed with, uh, I'm going to say this so wrong, throat cancer. I'm not laughing at the throat cancer, I'm laughing at the fact that I cannot say esophageal cancer, yeah, you know what I mean, which is so sad. Simpson ran into legal trouble once again in 2008 and served 9 years in prison for armed robbery and kidnapping. He died in April 2024 from prostate cancer, which we've also talked about, at the age of 76. May he rest in whatever hell he is in. Kim, along with sisters Courtney, Chloe, and brother Robert Jr., and her mom, Kris Jenner, have long been vocal about upholding Robert Sr.'s legacy. In fact, Kim decided to study to become a lawyer, as we know, like her dad, passing the baby bar exam in 2021 and advocating for criminal justice reform over the years. In her 2020 Oxygen documentary, Kim Kardashian West with the Justice Project, she discussed how her legal work has helped her feel connected to her father, saying, quote, there are times when I could be frustrated and studying really late and have to get up and wonder why he did it. Having 4 kids and must have been going through some of the same things that I have gone through. So it would have been exciting to talk to him about that. And I know that he would be so, so proud. And I'm sure he would have been. Anyways, that's it for me. I may or may not be back for another one on my own, but let's head back to both me and Mikkel. Okay. Um, so hopefully we're not gonna go that dark again.
Mhm.
Um, but Yeah, I know we took a break from immigration, but now we're gonna go right back to it again. I'm sorry, guys. I told you this was heavy with the immigration stuff because
Mhm.
I just it makes me really angry. This, though, is a little bit different than
Right.
that. So,
Mhm.
a family that was deported to Mexico hopes that they can find a way to return to the US and ensure that their 10-year-old daughter, who is a US citizen, can continue her brain cancer treatment.
Mm.
So, we're deporting a family of a child who has brain cancer. Anyways,
Yeah.
immigration authorities removed the girl and four of her American siblings from Texas on February 4th when they deported their undocumented parents. The family's ordeal began last month when they were rushing from Rio Grande City, where they lived, to Houston, where their daughter's specialist doctors are based, for an emergency medical checkup. The parents had done the trip at least 5 other times in the past, passing through an immigration checkpoint every time without any issues, according to attorney Danny Woodward from the Texas Civil Rights Project, a legal advocacy and litigation organization representing the family.
Uh-huh.
In previous occasions, the parents showed letters from their doctors and lawyers to the officers at the checkpoint to get through. I do want to stress before I finish this article that the difference is those 5 other times was being done through Biden's administration. And from the looks of things, the first time you do it under Trump administration is
Mhm.
when all hell broke loose. Just saying.
Uh,
But in early February, the letters weren't enough. When they stopped at the checkpoint, they were arrested after the parents weren't able to show legal immigration documentation.
uh-huh.
The mother, who spoke exclusively to NBC News, said she tried explaining her daughter's circumstances to the officers, but, quote, they weren't interested in hearing that. Other than lacking, quote, valid immigration status in the US, the parents have no criminal history, Wayward said. U.S. Customs and Border Protection,
Uh-huh.
which detained and deported the family, according to
Uh-huh.
their lawyer, said in an email, quote, for privacy reasons, we do not comment on individual cases. A CBP spokesperson said via email that the reports of the family situation are inaccurate because when someone is given expedited removal orders and chooses to disregard them, they will face the consequences of the process. Okay. They reiterated they couldn't speak about the case for privacy reasons.
Uh-huh.
The 10-year-old girl was diagnosed with brain cancer last year and underwent surgery to remove the tumor. Doctors practically gave me
Mm.
no hope of life for her, but thank God she's a miracle, the mother said.
Yeah.
The swelling on the girl's brain is still not fully gone, the mother said, causing difficulties with speech and mobility of the right side of her body.
Uh-huh.
Before the family was removed from the US, the girl was routinely checking in with doctors, monitoring her recovery, attending rehabilitation therapies, and taking medication to prevent convulsions.
Uh,
It's a very difficult thing, the mother said. I don't wish anyone to go through this situation. What is happening to this family is an absolute tragedy and is something that is not isolated to just them, as we just talked about, said Rochelle Garza, president of the Texas Civil Rights Project. This is part of a pattern in practice that we've seen in the Trump administration, Garza said, adding that she has heard of multiple other cases concerning mixed status families. But for now, this is the only case of this nature the organization has taken on. The Trump administration's border czar, Tom Homan, who we just talked about before, has said families can be deported together regardless of status. Holman said it would be up to the parents to decide whether to depart the U.S. together or leave their children behind. Which who would do that?
huh. Yeah, I
But
agree.
yeah, but undocumented parents of U.S. born children, if picked up by immigration authorities, face the risk of losing custody of their children. Say what now?
Huh.
Wow. Okay. Without a power of attorney document or a guardianship outlining who will take care of the children left behind. The children go into the U.S. foster care system because let's bog that down some more. Oh, okay. Making it harder for the parents to regain custody of their children in the future. Oh, God.
Mm.
I mean, Don't even get me started on the foster care system in the States, but this is not what they need right now because of this
I heard.
friggin' okay. According to the girl's mother, she recalled feeling like she could not do anything, she said in Spanish. You're between a rock and a hard place. NBC News is withholding the name of the mother and the rest of the family members since they were deported to an area in Mexico that is known for kidnapping U.S. citizens. Oh my God. In addition to the parents and their 10-year-old sick daughter, four of their other children, ages 15, 13, 8, and 6, were also in the car when they were detained. Four of the five children were born in the U.S. According to the mother, the family was taken to a detention center following the arrest, where the mom and daughters were separated from their husband and sons. Feels very, very Holocaust, man. And she realized she wouldn't be taking her daughter to the doctors. Quote, the fear is horrible. I almost can't explain it, but it's something frustrating, very tough, something you wouldn't wish on anyone, she said. And either her sick daughter was lying on a cold floor beneath incandescent lights. Um, Hours later, the family was placed in a van and dropped on the Mexico side of a Texas bridge, the mother said. From there, they sought refuge in a nearby shelter for a week. You're just dropped off and said, fend for yourself, basically. The family has since moved into a house, but the mom said that safety concerns keep them up at night and the children haven't been able to go to school. The 10-year-old daughter and 15-year-old son who lives with the heart disorder. Oh, sorry, rephrase. So the 10-year-old daughter and the 15-year-old son, they both have a heart disorder known as long QT syndrome, which sounds familiar, which causes irregular heartbeats and can be life-threatening if not treated well, have not received the health care that they need in Mexico, the mother said. The teen wears a monitor that tracks his heart rate. The authorities have my children's lives in their hands. Both parents arrived to the U.S. from Mexico in 2013 and settled in Texas, hoping for a better life for the family. The mother said she and her husband both worked a string of different jobs to support their 6 children. The couple also has a 17-year-old son they left behind in Texas following their deportation. Just 2 weeks ago, another undocumented mother in California caring for her 21-year-old daughter, a U.S. citizen undergoing treatment for bone cancer, was detained by immigration authorities and later released under humanitarian parole. How nice of you. We are calling on the government, Garza said, to parole the family in, to correct the harm that they've made, and to not do this to anyone else. So we'll see how that goes, I guess. But so here I am coming in again with some more articles. So this has to do with imposters claimed bogus returns through H&R Block offices in Alberta. So Nurse Leslie Warner will never forget being taken to her local RCMP detachment in Fernie, British Columbia in 2022 and charged in a social security fraud operating out of Alberta. She said she was fingerprinted and had her mugshot taken. She said, quote, I was like, oh my God, this is my identity theft. Warner recalls telling police, I did not do this. The fraud charges were dropped soon after. She explained that an imposter had been using her identity since 2020 when someone hacked into her Canada Revenue Agency account and filed a bogus return. In Alberta, the stated tax preparation company, H&R Block, was her new authorized representative. Warner said she has been trying for years to understand how her identity and at times her life came to be hijacked. She is still nervous about her CRA account being hacked again. The Fifth Estate has learned that Warner's name is one of thousands included in a massive breach of employees' personal information, including social insurance numbers from the British Columbia government's Interior Health Authority, which runs hospitals and medical facilities in the eastern part of the province. While it is unclear how many of those names were exploited by fraudsters, the Fifth Estate has found that stolen identities from several Interior Health employees past and present, have been used to obtain bogus CRA refunds and fraudulent loans in the past several years. A former Ontario privacy commissioner says, quote, it could be a nightmare for individuals whose names and private identification are included in the breach. This is horrible, said Anne, I think it's Covercan, executive director of the Global Privacy and Security by Design Center. These are the things that have to be brought to the public's attention. A source identifying themselves only by the name Anonymous wrote to the Fifth Estate last month and shared that what they said was a list of names stolen from the BC government agency. The source said they obtained the list from sellers operating on the dark web who set up a group on the encrypted Telegram app in 2017 and then sold the data for about $1,000. The Fifth Estate has not independently verified the existence of the Telegram group or how much of the data was sold for. However, the Fifth Estate has confirmed with numerous people on the stolen list that they did, in fact, work for BC's Interior Health Authority. All of them said that the information contained about them is accurate. The breach includes social insurance numbers, home addresses, why did I say it like that? And birth dates of more than 28,000 employees who worked at the agency between 2003 and 2009. Quote, as an ex-criminal who was involved in similar activities in the past, I now want to help others and right my wrongs, Anonymous wrote in an email to the Fifth Estate. I believe this information could be extremely valuable in identifying and contacting potential and future fraud victims. In their email to the Fifth Estate, Anonymous said that the list was first obtained from a data leak years ago, and that the information has been sold and distributed to thousands of people over the past 5 to 6 years. The Fifth Estate has now confirmed how many people obtained the data. For Warner, the knowledge her name was on the list has convinced her this is how her identity was stolen. She says she has even more questions now about how the breach happened and when it was first detected and how many other interior health employees have had their CRA accounts hacked or might be in the future. Quote, this is happening in real time, Warner said, adding she believes there are masterminds running the schemes who will continue doing this to other people. A previous Fifth Estate / Radio Canada investigation revealed that tens of thousands of Canadians have had their CRA accounts hacked since 2020, and that scammers have been taking advantage of security gaps between the Canada Revenue Agency and third-party tax preparation companies. Special CRA access codes assigned to third-party tax preparation companies have been repeatedly exploited by fraudsters to get into Canadians' tax accounts, the Fifth Estate learned. The Fifth Estate reported in March that 2 taxpayers in BC, one from Creston and one from Clonowna, I'm fine, had their accounts hacked in 2023, and bogus returns filed in their names by imposters who had targeted H&R Block locations in Alberta. It turns out that both their names are also on the list of Interior Health employees recently leaked to the Fifth Estate. Like Warner, the Clonova victim is also a nurse. Now, new documents and interviews with more stolen identity victims have revealed that at least 6 people who worked for Interior Health in BC had their CRA accounts hacked by imposters using various H&R Block locations across Alberta. A 7th stolen identity victim, a nurse from, I think it's Penton. It's Picton. Okay. Was listed by imposters as the sole director of 2 federally registered shell companies in Edmonton. Fraudsters then used those fake companies in her name to produce the bogus T4 slips used in their tax frauds. I feel dirty having been a victim of this, said the nurse, who did not want her name used publicly to protect her privacy when contacted by the Fifth Estate. Those 7 victims' names and private identification all show up in the leaked database of Interior Health Authority employees that was sent to the Fifth Estate. Warner's ordeal began when she checked her CRA account in 2021 and realized an imposter had received a bogus tax refund in her name after using her social insurance number and changing her email address and her direct deposit information to a bank account with Digital Commerce Bank in Calgary. She had noticed she had 3 new authorized representatives: H&R Block Office 50575, H&R Block 50638, and H&R Block Canada Inc. She said, quote, "I started looking through. My address had changed, my phone number had been changed. Suddenly I had children." Warner also noticed that the CRA sent a letter to the attention of an H&R Block tax preparer in Edmonton in March of 2021, stating that he was Warner's authorized contact for electronic filing. The following month, records show that CRA sent a letter in her name to H&R Block's headquarters in Calgary. In an email to the Fifth Estate last November, H&R Block stated it did not know of any incidents where Canadians had their CRA accounts hacked through the unauthorized use of its e-file credentials, those special access codes that allow third parties to file returns on behalf of customers. Still, internal H&R Block messages obtained by the Fifth Estate show that the company was aware that fraudsters were using their offices to file false returns. An undated H&R Block memo labeled "Out of Province Tax Filers" states that we have seen an increase in fraud by people claiming to move from British Columbia to Alberta. Another notice to employees dated April 14th, 2022, stated that H&R Block has seen fraudulent cases in Edmonton and Calgary of bogus T4 slips from a fake company called Hot Shots Delivery Inc. Hot spelled HAWT, shots spelled with a Z. That come on now. The following year, on June 15th, 2023, an updated memo stated that there are currently 2 fraudsters trying to use bogus T4 slips from a numbered company in Edmonton. Imposters, the memo stated, tried unsuccessfully to get instant refunds at H&R Block locations in Red Deer and Edmonton. The Fifth Estate reported last month that imposters used a fake T4 slip from that same numbered company to get instant refund through an H&R Block office in Alberta after successfully backing into the CRA account of the former Interior Health employee living in Creston, BC. The internal H&R Block memo also warns that scammers appear to be using fake IDs and the stolen identity of two more people whose names also show up in the leaked list from BC's Interior Health Authority. One H&R Block employee who says headquarters instructed its workforce this year not to talk to reporters told the Fifth Estate they believe the tax preparation company's main concern was not losing money rather than pursuing the fraudsters. In a statement, H&R Block said its previous statement about not knowing of any Canadians being affected by unauthorized use of its e-file credentials is accurate. Quote, "What you are referring to is a matter of identity theft and unrelated to e-file credentials," H&R Block said. "It is misleading and irresponsible to make any assumptions around the circumstances relating to any fraudulent tax filing incident and to make assertions about a party's ultimate responsibility for it," reads the statement. H&R Block did not address how imposters were able to successfully use H&R Block offices to process the bogus returns and hack into CRA. In March 2024, BC's Interior Health Authority issued a media release that some employees' personal information had been found during an RCMP investigation and asked anyone who had worked for the agency between 2003 and 2009 to call a 1-800 number to see if their name was on the list. Several employees whose names, addresses, dates of birth, and social insurance numbers show up on the list provided to the Fifth Estate says the health agency told them they were not on the list. Interior Health has said the list the RCMP found contained 20,000 names. The list provided to the Fifth Estate contains 28,000 names, which we mentioned before. In its media release last year, Interior Health said it had hired external security experts from audit and consulting firm Deloitte Canada, who confirmed that this information is not on the dark web. The dark web is often used as kind of, especially in true crime, the dark web is often used by criminal networks to buy and sell stolen information. In their email, Anonymous told the Fifth Estate that they learned about the stolen data on the dark web and any statement to the contrary is untrue. Me personally, as well as others, have bought it on Telegram shops and other dark web forums, Anonymous wrote. I'm sure Interior Health released that statement as a protection from liability and act like it's not that big of a leak. White declined to answer questions about how or when it might have determined something was not on the dark web, citing client confidentiality. In a statement, Interior Health's Vice President of Digital Health, Brent Crushell, wrote that due to the age of the data and its broad scope, IH was not able to accurately confirm where the information came from. As this remains an active RCMP investigation and before the courts, Interior Health is not able to provide additional information. For her part, Warner said she does not want to point fingers except at the criminals who stole her identity. She simply has more questions about who knew what and when and why she wasn't told either. So that's the end of that. That's it for me.
Mhm.
That's for me.
Okay. Alright. And, like, everybody probably feels the same way about immigration. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a sad thing. Um,
I mean, these are all
that's
things that he
Yep.
threatened to do in terms of
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
if parents aren't citizens, but your kids are, it doesn't matter. We're going to deport you anyways.
Mhm.
This was being threatened. We knew about this. Obviously not
Mhm.
before he was elected, but after. Um,
Mhm.
and this is it at work.
Yeah, really sad.
It is.
Really sad. Okay. So this ends this episode of the Next Tape podcast. The Next Tape podcast is available now on all podcast platforms. We also have a website called Tanika,
Next take podcast.podpage.io,
and where else are we at?
Facebook and Instagram at Next Take Podcast, and Twitter, TikTok, and Blue Sky Next Take Pod.
And you can contact us on our email at mikeltanika@gmail.com. That is mikeltanika@gmail.com. So we talked about a whole lot of things on this bonus episode. Uh, would you like to explain what we talked about, Tanika?
Really, the kind of main thing was Trump
Yes. So, yeah.
and the Trump administration in terms of immigration.
Yeah.
Um, we talked about the incident that occurred in Vancouver a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and we talked about, Canadians buying Canadian
Yeah.
products.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Uh, election in Canada doing recount for Quebec. So we talked a little bit about that. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this episode. Do we have anything else to say, or that's basically the gist of it?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, I'm Mikkel, and
And I'm Tanika.
we're out until
Tomorrow, I believe.
all right tomorrow. Peace, guys.
Bye.